In conversation with Kimberly Boone. Kimberly Boone, Doctor of Philosophy, is a licensed Christian counselor, certified life coach, writer, and speaker. She is a founder of My Life Restored Counseling, where she empowers people to be who God created them to be and to live their best life. She is an inspiration to everyone she meets, and she is a refreshing voice of love, truth, and wisdom. Kimberly's previous titles include If It Were a Snake and Royalty Rescued. Visit Kimberly online at www.myliferestoredcounseling.com and www.akingdommovement.com. And on today's episode of Photo Interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to offer the show today, Kimberly Bourne. How are you doing, Kimberly?
I'm doing fantastic, Peter. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here today.
Absolutely. I'm excited too to have you on the show. Quite exciting. We're going to be having a conversation around your works.
Sounds good. I just had a book released last Tuesday that's
Mm,
already number one. So
wow.
I'm super glad to be here
That's
and in awe of
amazing.
what God is doing. Yeah. hmm
Yeah. That's lovely. So, Kimberly, I see that you have three titles published already. But I'd love us to start a conversation from your recently published children's book titled I Am Unique, Not Weird. And I'd like to ask you, what inspired you to write this particular book and why children's literature this time? Plus, I love to say congratulations as well on the new release.
Well, thank you. I have to show it off.
Beautiful
Here you
cover.
go. I Am Unique, Not Weird. It is a children's book for ages 5 through 8. But Peter, I am finding that all ages are loving the book, including adults. And I guess we'll
Mm,
get into that a little bit later. But what inspired me was my 5-year-old niece. She just turned 6 this past weekend, but
mm,
she actually inspired me to write this when she was born 6 years ago. I had an opportunity to fly up to South Carolina to help take care of her for 3 weeks. And as I took care of her, Peter, I just began to speak life over her. And I realized how important um, it is for us to speak well, speak life, speak what God says over our children
absolutely.
because it
Yeah.
affects them. And so at that moment, I was inspired. And then a couple of years after that, maybe when she was 3, she was here in Tampa, Florida. That's where I am right now. And
No.
we were on the playground, and she was trying to engage a little girl. And the little girl, she was not having it. And Justice said, "Oh, she doesn't like me." And I think I approached it wrong. And I said, "Oh, well, no, she didn't hear you." And then later, when I got home, Peter, I thought that was the wrong approach. The right approach was, it doesn't matter who doesn't like you, right? You have to know that you are special in God's eyes, that He has called
Absolutely.
you a masterpiece. So I
Yeah.
think that incident on the playground that day really kind of fired me up for it. And so we just published it when she was 5. So it
Wow.
took a little while, but it's here.
That's actually amazing. And that's a lovely start to publishing a book. And, I love hearing the story to the making of it. That's quite beautiful, really. That's quite
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you so much. And I even doing some of the work that I do now, life
Yeah.
coaching and counseling, it's very clear that um, with the adults that I counsel, somewhere along the line, um, they weren't taught their identity or they forgot their identity. And so
Mm,
building a child's self-concept, how they see themselves, really affects self-esteem. And if those things are
absolutely.
lacking, you're gonna you're gonna experience things like um, depression and
Yeah.
anxiety and all kinds of things kind of are birthed out of that place of
Mm,
not knowing who you are. So
absolutely. Wow. I agree with you on that, really. I agree with you on that. Thank you for sharing. I love the sound of it. And now, Kimberly, you also have another book in the name of Royalty Rescued. For readers who haven't read that
I
yet,
do.
And without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect picking up Royalty Rescued? And if you have a copy there, I'd love you to show to
For
the
sure.
camera.
I do. I do. I had a feeling you were going to ask me about this.
Beautiful cover.
This was my thank you. This was my second book. And this book, kind of what I just said actually leads into this very well. When you're an adult and you don't know who you are, you will
Hmm.
experience low self-esteem, depression, anxiety. And so this is the story of my personal story where I did not
Hmm.
have a healthy self-concept and a positive self-esteem. And so I struggled um, even being in the church. I
Wow.
struggled with depression and even suicidal thoughts, right?
Wow.
And so this is about how God delivered me, and I realized who I was in Christ, right?
Hmm.
And it really is. I called it royalty rescued because one of the things that God calls us is a royal priesthood, right? And so I was rescued, right? Royalty was rescued, and she didn't even know she was
Hmm.
royalty. And so this is all about how um, the Lord rescued me and set me free from some of those things that I'm really speaking into children right now. Because I want them to get it at such a young age, right?
Yeah.
Of how unique God really made them.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love the part you mentioned royal priesthood. Got to remember a verse, I
Yeah.
think in Peter in the Bible, where you have royal priesthood, a holy nation, that
Yeah.
you should present yourself,
Yeah.
etc. Blah 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 blah.
That's it. That's exactly right. Where he tells us that we are set apart,
Yeah, we are
right? And when I
we are special. Mm,
yeah, yeah. The word unique in and of itself, because I went back and forth on what the title should be on this children's book.
yeah.
And that verse actually came to mind as well.
Mm,
When you talk about unique, you're talking about special and one of a
yeah.
kind, unlike, right? Unlike any
Absolutely.
other. And so that's why I honed in on the word unique so that every child would understand I am one of a kind. I am
Exceptional,
special. Yeah, I'm exceptional,
uncommon,
right?
you know.
Exactly. I'm extraordinary, right? So,
Extraordinary, beautiful. I love those words, really. And
for
I think it's
sure, for
actually a good
sure.
thing for one to have this in the back of their mind that they're exceptional, they're talented, they're great, irrespective of what
Yeah,
people see them as. And this thing is actually very
correct.
good because we human beings actually have issues with being low self-esteem. Even if it feels
Yeah.
as if you're doing good, sometimes you just feel this low self-esteem within you that gets you to,
Mm-hmm.
not so much trust in yourself or see yourself like a big, an important
Yes.
personality. So it's something really
And
worth
life
talking
can do
about.
that to you. Yeah,
Yeah.
life can do that to you. And you're right. Some
Yeah.
days you have good days, and then some days, I don't know, maybe you pick up the phone and go to social media and something and
Mm,
you see something and you start comparing, right? And all
comparing.
of a sudden you are in just this low place of,
Mm,
I am not enough. I'm not
mm,
smart enough. I'm not pretty enough and all these
wow.
things, right? But if this is instilled in you, at such a young age, right? In this
Bad.
book, her parents, Justice's parents, remind her every day, listen, baby, you are God's masterpiece, right?
Mm,
So when she's challenged in the book, right,
mm,
people call her this or they call her that, she remembers, right? And you see in the story where she says, no, because my dad says I'm strong. My dad says I'm
yeah.
strong,
That's
right?
beautiful.
So when you do have those days where you start comparing or you see
Yeah.
someone who's different from you, you
Mm.
remember that foundation has been laid. No, I'm a masterpiece
Yeah, I'm a
because God says I'm a
masterpiece.
masterpiece.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. That's such an amazing perception. What incorporating in a child from a very young age, because it helps them
Yeah.
along the line. It helps them, and this can also prevent people from committing suicide. Once you have this
Yes,
perception from you from a very young age and you nurture it and you grow with it gets you not to be moved by whatsoever you see, not to compare yourself with
that's it, dear.
whoever, not to feel like, oh, this person
That's
is doing
right.
better than myself, it just helps you to
Right.
have that inner happiness and satisfaction. It's
Amen.
I'm taking it, overly and interpreting it in a nice way because this is actually something like what discussing really. It is.
For sure. It's
It
so
is.
important. I told you with Royalty Rescued, um, I remember comparing myself to others. I remember feeling like I didn't measure up. I remember feeling like not even God loved me, right? Like
Mm,
I had a head knowledge of, yeah, God loves everybody, but it had not resonated in my heart, right? As
mm,
it relates to, no, he loves me. He loves me so much that he has given me a name.
mm,
He has called me a masterpiece. He has numbered the hair on my head, right? He
mm,
has called me royal and special and um he has placed a priceless value on me, right? And so once I started getting that revelation, again, later on in life, right? I wish I would have gotten it at age 5, right? At
mm,
age 4, right? And so this is all about, to your point, laying that foundation so that when you are
absolutely.
challenged, and kids are challenged every day at school, right? I mean, we're
Yeah,
challenged as adults. We're
absolutely.
challenged as adults
It applies to everyone,
every day.
It's something you
Every
cannot
day we gotta
escape,
remember.
irrespective of whatsoever age you are. Even at old age, people challenge you, challenge you. Why haven't you done this?
Exactly.
What's wrong with you? How about
Yeah.
this? It's a world full of comparison, and social media does not make
Yeah.
it much easier.
Self-esteem is an issue when you're younger.
Mm,
It's certainly going to manifest some kind of way when you're an adult, right?
absolutely.
And so people say, well, how can that manifest? It can manifest in things like depression,
Mm,
anxiety, comparison, all kinds of things show up when
yeah.
you're older. So this book is about my struggle with depression and anxiety, even suicidal ideation, right? And how ultimately the Lord delivered me from all of that. He
Wow.
showed me who He was, He showed me who I was, and then
Mm,
I was able to live the life that he's created me to live. So revelation into the revelation of who I was, right? Because my
right.
self-esteem was so damaged. Um, and coming into that revelation, I realized that God calls us royalty,
Mm,
right? And so even though I didn't know it, he was rescuing me when I needed rescuing. So
wow.
uh I love this book because it's just my personal story.
Yeah, that's actually beautiful. And I love your description of it, really. Sounds great to me.
Yeah.
And there's one of your title that I so much love. It's If It Were a Snake. I so much love. I don't know how you come about that title itself. And I love it to talk about the content. Would you love to tell us a bit about the making of If It Were a Snake?
This is if it were a snake, and of course, this is the snake's eye, but then in the snake's eye, there's a reflection of an angel, right?
Oh,
And so, if it were a snake, is a southern um, idiom in the United States
I see.
that
Yeah.
that pretty much means um, it was right in front of you. Like if you were to lose your keys, lose your phone, and somebody says it's right there. If it were a snake, it would have bit you, right? If it were a
Yeah.
snake, it would have got you, right? Because it's right there in front of you. And so I named this "If It Were a Snake" because God's goodness was in front of me the entire time when I'm talking about the main topic in this book, which was my mother's battle with cancer
Yeah.
and how me and my family had to take care of her. And so, when you're walking through, it's hard to see God's mercy. It's hard to see his goodness, because we were walking through this battle, this cancer battle with her. So every time you look up, you just see something bad. She has to
Oh,
go back to the hospital. She has to go back to the ICU. She's not eating, all these bad
wow.
things. But after she passed away, I looked back and in retrospect, God's mercy and his presence was with us the entire time.
Mm,
And so I named it If It Were a Snake because he was right in front of me. And I was missing it most of the time because I was so caught up um, in the natural things that were happening, but his peace was right before me. So um,
mm,
this is a story of how to find God's goodness even when it looks like all hell is breaking loose, right?
mm. Wow. Well, I love
This
your.
was my first book.
Oh,
This
wow.
was my very first book, and it was right after my mother had passed away, and it was so therapeutic. And so I just want to say to your listeners, if there is a message that you have, if there's a difficult thing that you have went through, I just encourage you to write it down. This is
Yeah.
only about 100 pages, but I wrote way more than that, but I just needed to go through the writing process just to begin to heal from losing my mother. So I just want to encourage your readers, just start writing. Even if you don't use it for a book or you don't use all of it for a book, just the process of getting it all out is so, therapeutic. So I
Yeah.
encourage that.
Yeah, I love your take on that, and I can actually relate to it. More
Yeah.
like you have a sad occurrence in time past, and it's so good to
Mm,
write about those things. Because I remember in one of my books, and it was, I think it's the second book I wrote many years ago. And sometimes when I look
yeah.
back and read those, I'm like, wow, Peter, you wrote these terrible words. Like, I was excited I wrote that because I know currently I cannot write in that text or in such a deep difficult, hard,
I understand.
language and words. But the fact that I
Right.
wrote it, I was so excited that wow, I'm so excited I wrote this book. you know,
Absolutely.
it's a very good
Absolutely.
thing to do.
It is. It is. And, we're in different places, in
Yeah.
life, right? When I was healing from my mom's death, I was, 10 years younger.
Wow.
I wasn't as spiritually mature as I am
Yeah.
now. So
Now.
we do look back on certain things and
Mm.
sometimes we're glad, like, oh, wow, I wrote that. And we're shocked. And then sometimes we're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I wrote that.
Mm. It's actually
But
a
it
good thing.
definitely, Hmm,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a good thing
Hmm.
because to me, it looks as if that process of writing it and having a book, it looks as if you're looking at an old picture, like an old photograph. I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah.
this I looked this time. Oh, this is a very old picture. That book to me is more like you're watching an old photograph of yourself. It just
Oh,
came
that is
to
so
me
good,
this way.
Peter. Yes, that is so true. That reminds
Yeah.
me of something that I like to do every birthday. I like to look at a current picture of myself and then look at
Mm,
the last year's picture
picture.
of
Yeah.
myself. Um, and just remember where I've come from,
Mm,
how I've changed. And you're right,
absolutely.
with all three of these books, Peter, I was in three different places,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
certainly couldn't have wrote I Am Unique, Not Weird when I was here, right? Because
Mm,
I didn't know who I was. I was grieving. There was a lot of emotional healing that needed to go on, a lot of
mm,
anxiety, depression. And then I realized here who I was, right? And
mm.
and when you realize who you are, then you can start moving into purpose. So that's
Absolutely.
when I started coaching school and seminary and counseling. And so I
Yeah.
was just moving on to the place where I am now, where I could actually teach little kids
Mm.
from 5 to 8 years old who they are. So you're right. Every book that you write is like a current picture of who you were at that
At that
time.
time,
And
yeah.
and that's the growth. I love that, Peter. I totally agree. Totally agree.
That's a very good definition. It's a very good one, actually. Really, I'd love to
Yeah,
write it down afterward and make a post about that quote,
for
especially for people
sure.
that
For
write
sure.
memoir and whose stories are based on real life experiences. Yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
change and
Mm-hmm.
things change. So that's amazing. And actually,
Yeah.
your response to that want to make me to write to ask you about this. You founded My Life Restored Counseling. Could you
I
tell us a
did.
bit about your work on, My Life
For
Restored Counseling?
sure. Yeah. Well, a little bit. like I said before about my journey, um, I went through a journey of finding myself, finding life purpose, and all of that. I struggled with, um, my spiritual health, my mental health, right? And even physical health, right? Because these
Mm,
two things affect, physical health and vice versa. Um, and so on that journey, um, of finding myself and who I belong to. I belong to the Most High God. He has given
mm,
me a name, He's given me
yeah,
a purpose according to His word. And so when
absolutely.
I realized who I was, identity reveals purpose. And
Mm,
so then I was able to realize it is my purpose to provide life coaching, provide counseling, to
mm,
help people heal in the area of mental health and
absolutely.
spiritual health and things like that. And so after I got my PhD, I opened up my life restored counseling, and we counsel anything between identity, purpose, mental health issues, depression, anxiety, any type of traumas, um, because I believe that, you know my goal, my objective is to
Yeah.
help people live God created them to live, right? And the Bible tells us that He knows the plans that He has for us and that they're good, right?
That's a
So I
peace.
want to help people get to those good plans because
Yeah.
oftentimes we are living life out and it doesn't look good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it doesn't look good, but much of that is because um we don't even know who we are, right?
Mm,
Our self-concept has been distorted, right? Whether our parents or somebody in our life, and that's what you see in this book. This child is 5 years old,
mm,
but um, when she goes to school, the children challenge her on who she is. Well, you're this, well, you're that, you're skinny and weak, you're this, you're that, right? So
lanky.
the children challenge her. The adults challenge her, right? And
Wow.
so um that's why it's so important for us to make sure children know who they are
Mm,
so that when they become adults they won't need as much counseling, right? We know that mental health, um, the importance of it has definitely been revealed since COVID, right?
absolutely.
We
Yeah.
kind of used to put our mental health on the back burner,
Yeah.
like I'll be all right. But
Mm,
since the pandemic, we've realized no, my mental health is very important,
awesome.
right? Yeah, and so that's why I had to open up that practice. And so I didn't know this, but I'm speaking to children and I'm also speaking to adults as I
Added.
counsel. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and it's the same message, Peter. It
Yeah.
really is the same message. Who are you, right? What were you created to do? What are the good plans that God has for you, right?
Mm,
And even releasing hope in it, right?
mm,
Because usually when people are struggling with mental health, they have lost all hope
mm.
because it's hard. Life can be difficult.
And
When you're walking through these challenges, and
yeah,
let's just say you're dealing with anxiety, you think you're the only one. And because I'm the only one struggling with anxiety and I don't have the words to explain it, you feel so hopeless and so defeated,
mm,
right? And
but
so counseling will always remind you of the hope, right?
yeah,
Remind you of who you really are, who you belong to, and that you have a purpose that is so much greater than the
absolutely.
moment you're going through right now.
Yeah. Wow. See, I love your response to these questions, and I love the sound of your books, really. They are so
Thank you,
deep,
Peter.
they are so thought-provoking, and they're extremely educative. So thank you for
Oh,
sharing.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's my goal, just to be as impactful as I can
Yeah,
um, for people, because it's truth that really sets you free, truth that really allows you to be exactly who God called you to be.
absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Now, apart from the
welcome.
books we've mentioned so far, do you have any
Yeah.
other works you've authored or say currently working on?
you know, Peter. So before I Am Unique, Not Weird came out, I had passed it along to a couple colleagues in the mental health field. And one of them in particular, she had allowed one of her coworkers to read it.
Oh,
And so um, they called me and they both were in tears. They loved the message. In particular, they work in childhood trauma. So this really spoke to them
yeah.
as being in the mental health field, particularly for children. And my coworker, or excuse me, my colleague's coworker friend, she said, I have a son and I need a version for him.
Wow.
I need a I Am Unique, Not Weird with a boy on the cover.
Wow.
And when she said that, that really resonated, right? And so, um, Peter, I thought I was going to work on some other projects, but now the boy version of this is what I'm working on right
Wow.
now, and I would like to get that published by the fall of this year.
Interesting.
So that is my next big project. I thought that this would take care of the girls and the boys. In fact, I changed the cover so that
Yeah.
boys would be attracted to it. At first, we were going to do all pink and a pink princess dress, and I
Yeah.
said, "No, guys, we can't do this because I want a boy to pick this up as well, right?" So I thought I had taken care of that, but since
Yeah.
I've been talking to boy moms, right, mothers of little boys, they have really enlightened me on issues that are specific to little boys that I had no idea about,
Wow.
right? And so, because little boys are challenged in their identity and their self-concept, how they see themselves, right?
Mm.
And ultimately how they feel about themselves. And so that's what I'm working on now. Something that speaks specifically to little boys. I don't know what I'm going to name him. This main character was named after my 5-year-old niece. So
Oh.
I don't know what this little boy is called. Maybe I should go to my social media following and ask them their opinion on what the little boy's name
That would be
um
great.
should be. Yeah, or even your followers. What should the little boy's name be?
Oh my God, that's amazing. I'd love to suggest Jack. I'm not sure if that question is for me.
Okay, all right, okay. And then one
Or
day I'll have a
Peter.
book. One day, or Peter. Peter,
I'm such a
Peter could work.
joker, really. Oh, Peter.
But I was thinking another J name. Her name is Justice.
Oh,
So I do
oh,
like, Justice and Jack. Um, we'll see, we'll see. But yeah,
yeah.
put it in the comments, guys, if you have any suggestions. Especially after you go get the book. What do you think the
Absolutely.
boy version, his
That's
name should be
great.
called?
That's amazing. I so much love your description and, deep explanation about your books and these questions too. Thank you for
You
mentioning.
are
Now, I
welcome.
also like to ask you, is there anything that you love to share with the viewers about your books and writing that we did not mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know?
You know, not in particular about me or the books, but Peter, I really would like to just encourage the audience as it relates to writing
Hmm.
their own books, right? And just encouraging, I believe everybody has books within them.
Yeah,
I believe that there are a lot of untold stories. And
yeah.
so I would just say, um, you know, you to write and encourage others to write, right? Because every time we get a story out there, for example, with my own books, this speaks to people are who have a loved one that may be dying, right? Or again, maybe all hell is breaking loose in your life, right? So this is
Mm.
encouraging people that I don't even know about. In fact, I think I wrote this book, Peter, about 10 years ago.
Wow.
And
Um,
last year, someone contacted me to let me know how impactful this book was,
Wow.
you know? as she deals with the loss of a aunt that was almost like a mom to her, right?
Mm.
And she didn't really lose her to death, but she was losing her to dementia, right?
Yeah.
And so, when they get to a certain point with that particular illness, they don't even remember you, right? And so for her, that was her hell breaking loose. My aunt doesn't even remember who I am, but this book gave her so much hope, right? This book, Royalty Rescue, speaks to
Mm.
people, adults who have low self-esteem, right?
Mm.
And so my whole point here is get the message out because you don't know who you're helping,
Yeah.
who can benefit from the
Really.
story that you're telling. Somebody asked me on an interview last week about the writing process and what you would, tell a new and upcoming author. And I said, number one, just write, right? But then number two, um, save some money because it's an investment,
Yeah, it
right?
is.
And
Yeah.
and I didn't know that when I first started writing. Nobody told me that. So
Oh, wow.
and so I just want to say start saving some money for the investment on the other side, right?
Mm.
And then just tell everybody about it. Leverage social media and then celebrate your book launch. Y'all, I've
Yeah.
been celebrating this book since it came out on the 19th of March. I've just been
Interesting.
celebrating. Um and celebrating the people that are being touched by it and celebrating each review
Yeah.
that comes in on Amazon, just celebrating the impact that my voice is having. And so um to answer your question, I would just say I just want to encourage anybody who wants to write, who desires but think they can't do it. They think they don't know how.
Mm.
They just have had all these limiting beliefs, limiting themselves. I
Yeah.
just want to say, stop that limiting thinking and just start writing. It will all come together. You have a message that somebody in this world
Next
needs
to
to
here.
hear. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Very
Yeah.
true. Very true. You have a message that somebody in this words next to hear. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. This
You
is
have a
all this
message.
is so deep and I can go on and on with it.
Love it, Peter.
That's really amazing, really. I love your take. I love your take on
Mm,
this. I
thank
love your
you.
answers to the question. And I love how philosophical they even sound to me. Very deep,
Thank you.
thought-provoking
Thank
as
you.
well. And now, would you like to read a short section of your book to the audience?
Oh,
Be a favorite line,
let
paragraph,
me see
or even a
here.
page, if you would like to.
Okay, I'll do a page. Yeah, absolutely. Now this is I want to remind your viewers that it is a children's book.
Yeah.
And so it's it falls under picture books for ages 5 through 8, right? And so it's less than 1,000 words because again, we're speaking to 5-year-olds, right?
Hmm.
And so I'm just going to read one page here.
Yeah.
And so Justice is talking to her mom at breakfast here,
Oh,
and she
beautiful
says,
illustration.
"Isn't it beautiful?
Beautiful
The illustrations
illustration.
are just
Yeah, it
beautiful."
is.
Yeah. So she says, Mommy, masterpiece means that I'm a special girl, huh? Justice asked. Her mom answered, That's right, sweetheart. You are super special. And I love that because, again, as we were talking about, you know, self-talk, right? So Justice is confirming with her mom what masterpiece means because
Mm,
her mom and dad have told her you are a masterpiece, right? So
mm,
there's talk. And now on this page, Justice is confirming in her 5-year-old mind what that means, right? So because she's taking that language and now she's going to develop a self-concept, how she sees herself. So mommy, masterpiece means that I'm a special girl, right? And then her mom confirms it, right? So now
mm.
she confirms that picture in her head and she goes, That's right, baby. You are super special. right? So I love that because it's just so clear as to um, how we play such a big role in these children's self-concept, which will
Yeah,
lead to self-esteem, right? And
absolutely.
then the other thing that I am super excited about is this part in the back. And
Oh,
it's for parents. It says a new way to talk about or
to your
to your
child.
child.
Yeah.
And so instead of saying weird, to your child, you're so weird, say you're unique, right?
Okay.
Instead of calling them a tattletale, they're a truth teller, right?
Mm.
They're a protector, they're a guardian.
Wow.
Instead of calling your child a know-it-all, um, you can reframe that to they're informed or they're smart or they're brilliant, right?
Mm.
Peter, I remember coming up when I was in first grade, the teacher would tell me that I talk too much, right? And I even remember one day she put this could not happen in any classroom in 2024, but I remember I was speaking a little too much in her class and she put masking tape over my mouth. And I was 5 years old. And so at that point, I was being silenced. But not only was I being silenced because I got on the chart, it says talkative, right? Um, it really caused me to shut down for real, right? And I didn't walk into purpose until maybe my late 30s, early 40s, right? Um, because I had been told talking too much is bad. And Peter, look what I do now. I life coach,
Mm.
I
The
counsel,
speaker. Mm.
right? I
Yeah.
teach, I speak. And
Mm.
so that
Imagine.
that that was an effort to shut down
Shuts you
my
down from a
yeah,
small
shut
age.
down my identity
Mm.
and my purpose. And so the
Mm.
words that we use over our children
Mm.
are so important because they echo. They echo in that child, and that child remembers. Oh, I don't want to talk too much.
Mm.
They called me. They said I talked too much when I was 5 years old, right? And so then you're focused on that instead of focusing on why God created you, which was to counsel people, right?
Mm.
To to
Yeah.
to to teach people, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I am just in love with this chart because it just
Wow.
really gives, if you're a parent and you're like, listen, I speak how I speak. My mom and dad never said anything encouraging to me. This chart will help you. This chart
Wow.
is going to help you reframe how to talk to our
Wow.
children so they can see themselves the right way.
Wow. This is very deep. This is very
Mhm.
deep. And I love your short illustration about the talking aspect and how the teacher put it in a tape over
Yeah,
your mouth. It's
yeah,
actually, most people get to realize what they are good in from a very young age or what they're going to become from a very young age. And most teachers or parents might be, they don't have, will I say, discerning spirit to recognize that, okay, I think this is what this my kid will be good in, this is what this child will be good in,
hmm
this is, the way forward, etc. And they just
yeah,
often, will I say, just overlook it or not even pay too much attention to it. Or you just correct and said, stop that, you know,
yes,
without
yes,
them even knowing that
correct.
this is
Hmm.
the masterpiece or this is how they're gonna
Yeah,
become. So it's an amazing thing, really. I love the fact, I so much love how simple, concise, and very
yeah.
important your story and book sounds. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I love how you use the word simple and concise because Peter, I almost didn't write the book because I thought this message is too simple. Like,
Hmm.
who, who would want, who's going to spend some money on this, right?
Hmm.
And the reality is, there are a lot of simple things that we have not gravitated toward,
Yeah.
right? That we have not grasped. And so to see a book with such a simple yet impactful message,
Artful. Yeah.
that's what people are needing,
Yeah.
right? Um, People are searching for truth every single day. And
Yeah.
so with the truth being so simple, right? It can change everything,
Yeah.
right? If I tell a 5-year-old boy, that they are strong, right? That they are brilliant, I want that to echo in his
Mm.
mind,
Yeah.
right? Until up and through he's an adult, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the opposite. You're not strong, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not all of that stuff. We don't want that to echo because
Yeah.
that's how he will see himself and that's how he will ultimately position himself in life. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So you hit the nail on the head when you said simple and concise. And so I
Yeah.
told the Lord, I said, you know, whatever simple message you have for me to give, I'm gonna write it up. I'm gonna write it up. I'm gonna put it in the book. This book is based on a particular scripture called out of Ephesians 2:10, where God calls us a masterpiece. He says, "You are a masterpiece created for good works in Christ Jesus." Right?
Absolutely.
But how many of us are told that we're a
Mm.
masterpiece? Usually,
Mm.
we grow up thinking, "I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not whatever enough." Right?
Mm.
But this simple message of I am a masterpiece, right?
Mm.
And then if you drop that seed, you know, um, in that child, it will begin to germinate, right? And then all the other adults, right, or whomever the child is around, hopefully will be putting water on that seed, right?
Yeah.
So that that child can grow up with a healthy self-concept and a positive self-esteem.
Absolutely. Wow.
So it's simple, but it goes a long way.
This is amazing so much. So much amazing. Thank you. And now, just in case we have
Absolutely.
some viewers who are currently watching this interview, I would love to
Yeah,
get a copy of any of your books. On what platform are they available on for purchase?
for sure. They are all on Amazon.com. You can get each and every one of them there, and ebook or paperback.
That's great. And I left a link
Amazon.
in the description part of this interview where interested viewers
Perfect.
can get a copy of Kimberly Bone's books directly on Amazon and also another platform. So thank you so much, Kimberly, for accepting the
You are
invitation
so welcome.
to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
You too. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you guys for listening, sending much love your way. I appreciate you. Please go out and buy a book for every child that you know. I promise you it will bless them. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you.